Have you ever opened a company's annual report and just felt lost? You're hit with this wall of numbers, and it all seems so dense, so complicated. But what if I told you that hidden inside all that data is a really compelling story? A story about a company's big wins, its hidden struggles, and the huge bets it's making. Well, that's what we're going to do today. We're going to learn how to read that story.
Take a look at this. At first glance, yeah, it looks like a spreadsheet came to life. Just a wall of numbers. But this isn't just about accounting. Think of it like a mystery, a puzzle waiting for us to solve. Every single number on this page is a clue, and our job is to piece them all together.
So for the next few minutes, let's put on our detective hats. We're going to take these raw numbers and use a few simple but really powerful tools. We call them financial ratios to uncover the real story of what's happening inside a business. Ready? Let's get started.
Okay, so our case file for today is all about a company called Neville. They're in the business of making and selling office products. And like any company, their leadership team really wanted to grow the business. So they came up with a pretty bold plan to make it happen.
Here's the rundown. The goal? Super simple. Boost revenue. And the plan to get there had three main parts. First, they were going to cut prices to bring in more customers. Second, they'd give those customers more time to pay their bills. And third, they'd buy more machinery so they could actually make all this extra stuff to sell. A pretty aggressive strategy, right?
So, this is the central mystery we need to solve. The directors put this big, risky plan into motion. But did it actually pay off? Did this gamble make the company stronger, or did it create a whole new set of problems? It's time to start digging for clues.
First things first, we're going to follow the trail of profitability. I mean, this is the most obvious place to start, right? If their whole goal was to boost revenue, let's see if they actually did it, and more importantly, if it turned into real profit.
And wow, the first piece of evidence looks amazing. Revenue jumped from just over $1.1 million to almost $1.4 million. That's a 20% increase in just 1 year. You look at that and you'd think, mission accomplished, case closed, right?
And yeah, look, at first glance, you can see why they'd think that. You can just picture the memo going around. Our strategy worked. We attracted more customers and revenue is up. Everyone's probably high-fiving in the boardroom. But any good detective knows that the first clue is rarely the whole story.
So we have to dig a little deeper. Growing sales is great, but what about the quality of those sales? Is the company actually making any money on all this new business? To find that out, we need to pull out our first detective tool.
And that tool is the operating profit margin. All this does is measure how much profit a company makes from its main business for every single dollar of sales. It's a fantastic clue for understanding a company's real financial health, way beyond that flashy headline revenue number.
And when we run the numbers, whoa, the results are pretty startling. Look at this. While that revenue number was shooting up, the company's operating profit margin absolutely collapsed. It fell from over 20% all the way down to just under 13%. So for every dollar they sold, they were keeping way less profit than they were the year before. That, my friends, is a major red flag.
Okay, so let's pause and check our notepad. We have one big check mark in the positive column. Revenue is up a whopping 20%. But we have a huge warning sign on the other side. The actual profitability of that revenue has fallen off a cliff. The story is definitely getting more complicated. The plot thickens.
All right, so falling profits, that's a huge problem. But it points us to an even bigger, more urgent question. What is happening to the actual cash? A company can survive with low profits for a little while, but no company can survive without cash. So let's follow the money.
And remember that part of Neville's plan, the decision to give customers more time to pay? It's a pretty common way to juice sales, but it can have a really dangerous side effect on a company's cash flow. So let's pull out another tool from our kit to see what's really going on here. And that tool is called the receivables collection period. It's a simple little calculation that tells us, on average, how many days it takes for a company to actually get paid after it makes a sale. For our investigation, this is an absolutely critical clue.
And yikes, the result is pretty alarming. Just a year ago, it took Neville about 65 days to collect the cash it was owed. Now, it's taking them 110 days. That's almost 4 months. Their plan to extend credit definitely worked to get more sales, but it's also starving the company of cash. And here's where it becomes a really dangerous game.
Naval is waiting 110 days to get its money, but at the same time, it has to pay its own bills to its suppliers, and it's stretching those payments out to 102 days. The company is in this really tight spot where the cash it needs to pay its bills today won't actually arrive for months. This is just not sustainable.
Okay, we've looked at the profits, we've followed the cash. We started with some conflicting clues, but a pretty clear picture is starting to form now. I think it's time to connect the dots and deliver the verdict. So it turns out there's a name for exactly what's happening to Neville. It's called overtrading. It's this classic business trap where a company grows its sales way too fast without having the financial foundation to actually support that growth. And the symptoms are exactly what we've uncovered: a huge jump in money owed by customers, a drop in available cash, and having to lean more and more on its own suppliers for credit. So our verdict is clear. The plan to boost revenue, well, it worked, but at what cost? This aggressive strategy of cutting prices and extending credit has pushed Neville into a really precarious financial state. They are a textbook case of overtrading. And hey, don't just take my word for it. Our own case file confirms our findings. The expert summary says it all. While the revenue goal was met, it created a dangerously poor liquidity position. The story in these numbers is a cautionary tale about chasing growth at any cost. Now, before we close the case file on Neville, there's a little bit of fine print we need to go over. You see, being a good financial detective also means knowing the limitations of your tools. Ratios are incredibly useful, but they aren't magic. First off, they're based on the past, so they don't predict the future. They can also be manipulated by what we politely call creative accounting. Plus, they totally ignore the human stuff, like the quality of the management team or the morale of the employees. And comparing ratios between different companies can be really misleading. So always use them as the start of your investigation, not the final answer. So the big takeaway here is that every set of financial statements tells a story of strategy, of risk, and of performance. We've seen how just a couple of simple ratios helped us unlock the real story for one company. So the next time you see a business report, don't just see a wall of numbers. See the mystery, see the story, and ask yourself, what's the first question you're going to ask?